Hello everybody, this is your pre-lab video for week 11 of the semester, the week of March 28th. Just some quick announcements to start out. This is your last week of compound testing. In other words, this is the last week when you'll be setting up vials. And every week after this, you'll be checking in on your vials to see if any are ready to be to be quantified. I'm going to continue to mark your vials with tape, the ones that are ready to be quantified. And please remember that your negative controls need to go on the spreadsheet where everybody is putting their negative controls. So this includes the ones that were set up in the first week of the semester when we were setting up vials, and also the ones that are incorporated into your drug test vials. Lecture is remote synchronous, so please do attend on Wednesday, March 31st. We'll be talking about clinical trials, and continue to communicate lab absences to me so that we know what to expect in each section. I'd also like you all to give some thought to what you want April to look like. So I worked in some flexibility in the syllabus this semester for the month of April because I wasn't sure how things would play out. So we have the option of being remote if you want. The one caveat is that there are going to be vials that have to be quantified. So you should talk with your TAs this week and make a decision as a group about what you want to do after the week of March 28th. One way that this could look, and it seems like this is something that a lot of people are interested in doing, we did this last semester, is to have one person from each group coming in to quantify vials, and you can rotate so that, if you have 4 people in your group, you would come every 4th lab session to check on your vials and quantify any that need to be counted up and logged. Most of the other things that we're doing in April, I think, might be more efficiently achieved online. Creating graphs, populating the poster templates, practicing your poster presentation, all of those things can be done remotely, but it's entirely up to you. You just need to come to some consensus within your individual lab sections. So your TAs will be communicating that to me by the end of the week, and we can go from there. We can be extremely flexible with this. This coming week, like I said in lecture, we're going to be talking about clinical trials. This is the subject that you did the play posit on that was due on the 28th on Sunday at 10 p.m. Do check out, there's in the last column, I've been putting this in here periodically, but I usually this is the time in the semester where people start paying attention to the idea of creating a poster. There is a page called Development of the Research Project that has all of the rubrics, all of the upload links, everything that you need for the entire semester to create your research project. So if you haven't looked at this, do check into that because it has a lot of useful information, including the grading rubrics for the methods section, the poster itself, the presentation, and also information about the specific aims page, which is due during finals. Next week, we're going to be talking about bioethics and reliable science. So you'll have a play posit due on April 4th. You'll also have a draft methods section. You and your TAs and your cohort are going to be developing a draft of that methods section in the lab this week. So your TAs will give you some guidance about the kinds of things that need to be on there. Do check that development of the research poster page because, like I said, the grading rubric is on there. The submission for the methods draft of your poster is required. We will give it a thorough edit. We'll also grade it. And you'll get edits back both for your introduction and your methods section that you can just plug right into your poster. This week in the lab, you won't be collecting embryos. It looks like our last embryo collection will probably be on Sunday, the 28th. So I'll go in and collect from all of the cages, and then I might leave them hanging out for a little bit longer just to make sure that we have enough larvae for all of the vials that are set up this week. You will be collecting third instar larvae from the bottles that are left out for your section, and these will be irradiated and you can put them into your vials. So you'll need to set up your food and drug vials. That experiment this week is really up to you. I think almost everybody at this point has done what we call the high dose experiment, where we look at the effect of your compound at the highest achievable dose in someone's serum. You also did a dose response at a 1 to 2 dilution series to see whether your compound's effect drifts off as the concentration gets lower. We have a couple of different options for this coming week. One thing that you could do is you could do a 1 to 10 dilution series just to try to capture when the effect drops off. And of course, all of this is assuming that your compound works. We'll talk about what happens if your compound doesn't work next week. But for now, let's just keep plugging away based on the assumption that this compound is going to work. Another option for this week, just as an idea, is you can perform a pretty simple experiment to determine whether the effect of your compound is additive or synergistic with radiation. In other words, does the compound by itself produce some effect? We're assuming that it does. Radiation alone is going to cause about 50% death. Right now, with the most updated information I have, it looks like our percent survival is about 47%, which is right on target for 2,500 rad. And you can combine the two. And in the same experiment, ask whether the amount of death that you see from the compound by itself, plus the 50% death that you see with radiation, is equal to the compound plus radiation. So give that some thought for a second. The amount of death from the compound plus the amount of death from the radiation, if that equals the amount of death you see when you combine the two, that's called an additive effect. That means generally that the compound is acting in a way that doesn't influence how the radiation works. In an ideal world, we want a compound that's going to act synergistically with radiation. So if you take the effect of the compound, how much death does it produce? How much death does the radiation produce, which is 50%, and you add them together and it's greater than the sum of those two numbers, it suggests that the compound has a synergistic effect with radiation, so that the compound is affecting somehow how sensitive the cells in the larvae are to radiation. And this is fantastic because it means that we could reduce the dose of radiation to reduce toxicities in patients and potentially even give a lower dose of compound. So our goal in this class, as I've said many times, is to not only identify a compound that represents a potentially promising chemotherapy, but also a compound that might be combined with radiation to reduce the doses of both and ultimately reduce toxicities that patients experience when they're undergoing cancer treatment. So these are the tips that I presented last week. You should be adding more than 50 larvae to each vial. The vials are looking so good. The volumes of food are looking like they're almost exactly 5 milliliters, so we know that the concentration of compound is reliable from vial to vial. Try not to smush the larvae when you're sorting them. So we're noticing in some sections that that second level of the sieve stack has only cornmeal. And that's usually because people are pressing on the larvae too hard and literally squishing them so that they either get stuck on the top or they fall right through that second level to the third level of the sieves. The volume of food in the vials is looking really good, so keep up the good work. And make sure that you're adding the drug to the food while the food is still really warm. You shouldn't see a track where your pipette tip was or like divots in the surface of the food. It's going to make it harder for the drug to diffuse evenly through the food if it's just like plunked into a single channel. So just make sure that the food is quite warm. Coming up next week, due on April 4th at 10 p.m., you have your Bioethics and Reliable Science Play Pause It. The methods section draft is also due on the same day. And I don't know why I have this here, but that's a duplicate. The poster presentation and the poster presentation video and the poster file are both due on Friday, April 16th at 5 p.m. And that's so that we can get everything uploaded for you for the symposium, which is on Wednesday, April 21st. Okay, so at this time, I want y'all to go to Canvas. If you're watching this, go to Canvas and find lab participation assignment number 4. There's one question about what you saw in this pre-lab video, go ahead and fill it out for lab participation for this week. And then I'll be stopping by your sections. If I don't get to you, feel free to drop me a line. We can Zoom and talk about your project if you have any questions. I'd love to hear about your data. So if not this week, then next week I'll be swinging by and asking you all to summarize it for me so that you can get used to becoming fluent in talking about your project.